What happens when a family lacks direction? What happens when a nation lacks leadership? Join us as we explore the story of Micah's missing dad and the timeless lessons it holds about fatherhood, responsibility, and the moral compass that shapes both families and societies. In a small, nameless village nestled in the hill country of Ephraim, a family lived without a guiding hand, without a father to lead them. Their story is tucked into the pages of the Book of Judges, a time when there was no king in Israel, and everyone did what seemed right in their own eyes. Micah, the son, becomes a symbol of a household adrift, where broken values and moral confusion lead to devastating consequences. But Micah's story isn't just ancient history. It mirrors the struggles of countless homes today, where fathers are absent either physically or emotionally, and children grow up without the strength and wisdom a father's presence is meant to provide. In ancient Israel, Micah's household was much like many others. It stood as a reflection of its time, a time without a king, where the people were far from their God, and there was no central authority, no moral anchor, and no unified vision of what was right. In the absence of his father, Micah's mother filled the vacuum, but her leadership, though well-meaning, lacked the foundation of godly principles. It all began with a theft. 1,100 shekels of silver, worth about $11,000 in today's currency, went missing from Micah's mother. Outraged, she cursed whoever had stolen it, perhaps unaware that her own son was the culprit.
Whoever has taken my silver, may they find no peace. May trouble follow them until they return what is not theirs.
In fear or guilt, Micah confessed and returned the silver. His mother's response was surprising. Instead of rebuking him or seeking justice, she blessed him in the name of the Lord, her next action revealing the deeper cracks in the family's values.
May the Lord bless you, my son. I had set this silver apart as a gift to the Lord on your behalf, to create a carved image and a molded idol. Now I am giving it back to you.
And with that, she took 200 of the silver pieces, the very money that had been cursed and then returned, and had them melted down to make an idol. In direct violation of God's commands, an image of false worship was crafted, and it was placed in Micah's house. There, an entire shrine was built, and the household of Micah now became a center of idolatry. As if that were not enough, Micah consecrated one of his sons to serve as a priest, an act reserved only for the descendants of Aaron. Soon after, a wandering Levite appeared, and Micah hired him to serve as his household priest. In Micah's eyes, this seemed a better arrangement. He believed that having a Levite in his home would bring God's blessing, even though everything about his setup, the shrine, his idols, and his self-appointed priest, violated the covenant of God. Micah's household was one of confusion, where human reasoning replaced divine instruction, leadership was missing, and worship was corrupted by personal convenience. Perhaps the scariest part was that this was not a Gentile household, but a Jewish one. Today, that would translate to a Christian or even a pastor's home. However, this story doesn't just reveal the confusion of Micah's household, it also highlights how their actions were in direct contravention of the laws that God had given to guide his people. Between Micah, his mother, and their household, not one, not two, but 7 of the 10 commandments were broken. How wild is that? Let's take a closer look at the specific commandments they broke. 1. You shall have no other gods before me. This commandment emphasizes exclusive devotion to the one true God. By creating and worshipping a graven image, Micah and his household violated this foundational principle. Instead of worshipping the Lord as he commanded, they turned their attention to an idol, putting their trust in something man-made rather than the living God. 2. You shall not make for yourself a carved image. This commandment explicitly forbids the creation of idols, as they misrepresent God and lead people into false worship. Micah's household blatantly disobeyed this by crafting a carved image and treating it as an object of reverence. Instead of honoring God in spirit and truth, they reduced worship to a physical object which God had strictly prohibited. 3. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. This commandment warns against using God's name in a way that is disrespectful, dishonest, or hypocritical. In this story, the name of the Lord was invoked to bless an act that was clearly sinful, the creation and worship of an idol. This misuse of God's name twisted what was holy to justify disobedience, showing a profound misunderstanding of true worship. 4. Honor your father and mother. This commandment calls for showing respect, love, and integrity toward one's parents. Micah dishonored his mother by stealing the silver she treasured, betraying her trust, and disregarding her well-being. His actions reflected not just a lack of respect, but also a failure to uphold the family bond in accordance with God's law. 5. You shall not steal. This commandment prohibits taking what does not belong to you. Micah directly violated this by stealing the silver from his own mother, showing a lack of respect for both God's law and his family. His actions set the stage for further wrongdoing and discord in their household. 6. You shall not give false testimony. This commandment calls for honesty and integrity, both in speech and in action. In Micah's household, implicit dishonesty was evident as they engaged in false worship and pretended to honor God while clearly disobeying his commandments. Their actions misrepresented true devotion, creating a foundation of hypocrisy and deceit. 7. You must not covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. This commandment forbids the sinful desire for what belongs to someone else. Micah coveted his mother's silver, allowing his greed to drive him to steal from her. His desire for personal gain led to actions that dishonored both his family and God's law. In the absence of a father's leadership in Micah's life, truth was compromised, morality was blurred, and self-made religion replaced obedience to God. The result was a family, and eventually a society, spiraling into spiritual and moral confusion. Micah's situation was a reflection of what obtained in the nation of Israel at the time. The period of the judges in which this story is set was marked by chaos, instability, and a lack of strong, centralized governance. Micah's father's influence could have profoundly shaped the emotional, spiritual, and social development of his household. However, several factors may have contributed to his absence. He may have been killed during one of the numerous battles, raids, and internal conflicts that plagued ancient Israel. Otherwise, succumbing to idolatry or other forms of disobedience, Micah's father may have abdicated his responsibilities, leading to a household led by a mother without strong guidance. Additionally, the practice of polygamy in ancient Israel was not an uncommon occurrence, so if Micah's father had other families, his presence and influence could have been limited or altogether absent. Drawing a parallel to modern times, the absence of fathers in homes can also be attributed to certain factors. Many families lose fathers due to illnesses, accidents, or other premature deaths, leaving mothers or guardians to raise children alone. Also, broken homes along with the rising rate of divorce lead to many children being raised by single mothers, where fathers are absent or minimally involved. Moreover, in polygamous settings, fathers may divide their attention and resources among multiple households, diluting their presence and influence. In some cases, even though fathers are physically present, they are emotionally detached from the home due to demanding jobs or excessive work commitments, leading to little meaningful time being spent with their children. Some cultures and societies play a contributory role where they reinforce toxic masculinity, discouraging emotional involvement or proper nurturing of children by the fathers. Lastly, modern culture increasingly normalizes non-traditional family structures where fatherhood is undervalued or redefined. The perceptions of the father's role as protector, provider, and spiritual leader are diminished. When a father figure is absent in a home, there are very noticeable consequences such as emotional and behavioral issues with growing children. Children are exposed to weak or confused moral values and become susceptible to negative peer pressure. Traits of low self-esteem, aggression, and poor academic performance can be seen, and there is increased likelihood of substance abuse, delinquency, and early sexual activity. That said, there is a dire need for restored fatherhood. Strong, involved fathers are vital for providing guidance, discipline, emotional support, and spiritual leadership. Communities and churches must encourage men to embrace their God-given roles and support single-parent families to bridge the gap where fathers are absent. Restoring fatherhood is foundational to building healthy families and ultimately stronger societies. Ephesians 6 verse 4 tells us, "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord." Fathers are called to guide the family in spiritual matters, setting an example of faith, prayer, and obedience to God. Fathers leading family devotions and prayer times and instilling biblical values create a foundation for children's moral development. It is also the responsibility of fathers to meet the financial needs of the household by working to provide food, shelter, education, and other essentials. Provision also includes creating opportunities for the family's growth and stability. Furthermore, they provide physical protection by ensuring the safety of the family. They offer emotional security, creating an environment where children feel safe to express themselves and learn. Proverbs 22 verse 6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, even when he is old, he will not depart from it." This tells us that fathers model character, integrity, hard work, and responsibility. Boys learn how to become men, and daughters learn what to expect from men based on a father's example. When fathers fulfill their God-given responsibilities, they nurture well-rounded, confident children and build strong families that reflect God's design for society. Father Abraham stands as one of the greatest examples of godly fatherhood in the Bible, remembered not only as the father of nations but also as a man of faithful obedience. In Genesis 18 verse 19, God himself affirms Abraham's role, saying, "I have singled him out so that he will direct his sons and their families to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just. Then I will do for Abraham all that I have promised." He was a man of prayer and devotion, building altars wherever he settled and fostering a culture of worship and dependence on God within his household. God trusted him to lead his family with righteousness, and that influence extended beyond Isaac to future generations. His fatherly care ensured the safety and well-being of his household, as seen in his defense of Lot when Sodom was attacked, and Lot was among those taken captive, demonstrating a father's protective reach to the broader family. Even in his mistakes, such as with the birth of Ishmael, Abraham sought God's forgiveness, realigned with his promises, and exemplified humility and repentance. Vital lessons for every father. Finally, the Lord God is the ultimate father figure, embodying perfect love, wisdom, and guidance for all fathers to imitate. He is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. As the creator and sustainer of life, God provides for his children's every need, offering protection, discipline, and correction with unmatched tenderness and justice. God's sacrificial love, revealed through the gift of his Son, Jesus Christ, demonstrates the depth of a father's selflessness and care. God leads by example, teaching righteousness, mercy, and truth while remaining a source of unwavering strength and refuge. Fathers who reflect these characters build homes founded on love, faith, and integrity, leaving a legacy of godliness for future generations. By following God's pattern of fatherhood, men fulfill their highest calling, to raise their families in the fear of the Lord and to model his perfect, unchanging love. The world is in desperate need of strong father figures who will direct their children in the way of the Lord. Will God be able to say of you, as he said of Abraham, that you lead your household to do what is right and just? Let us rise to the high calling of fatherhood, not in our own strength, but by walking closely with God, trusting him to fulfill his promises through us and our families. Be the father your children can follow, and through your example, generations will be blessed. If Micah's story touched your heart, don't miss out on more inspiring stories of faith and restoration. Subscribe to Faith Reflections 247 now. Like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and hit the bell icon to get notified of every powerful message we share. Together, let's spread hope and faith one reflection at a time.